The red dust of Kaelin swirled, a constant, gritty whisper against the shimmering crystalline structures that dotted the harsh landscape. This was a world of stark beauty and even starker struggle, where survival was etched into every wind-blasted rock and every desperate, sun-baked crevice. Life here wasn't a gentle bloom, it was a defiant, razor-edged existence, constantly battling against the planet's relentless indifference. Here, amidst the unforgiving vastness, lived Xylos, her crystalline form radiating a faint, almost imperceptible warmth against the perpetual cold of loss. She was a widow, her mate taken by a rare, swift-moving dust plague years ago, leaving her alone to navigate the treacherous currents of Kaelin's meager existence. Her deep bond with her twin daughters, two sparkling, nascent crystals growing stronger with each passing cycle, was the very core of her being, the anchor that kept her shimmering spirit from fracturing entirely. They were her world, her purpose, her everything, and their innocent laughter, though increasingly rare, was the sweetest melody in the desolate silence. Their days passed in a laborious rhythm, foraging for the scarce, nutrient-rich flora that clung stubbornly to life in the shadowed gorges, carefully filtering the brackish water from subsurface reservoirs, and always conserving every precious resource. Each sunset brought the chilling realization that their meager stores were dwindling further, the gnawing anxiety a constant companion to Xylos's heartstone. And then, the blight came. It wasn't a sudden, cataclysmic event, but a slow, insidious creeping death, like a shadow stretching across their already fragile hope. It began with the wilting tips of the precious Luminivines, the staple of their diet, their vibrant blue luminescence fading to a sickly gray. Then, the blight spread, consuming patches of the hardy moss clusters, the only other reliable food source. Within weeks, what little edible vegetation remained was tainted, shriveling into brittle husks, utterly devoid of sustenance. Panic, cold and sharp, began to truly grip Xylos. The drought, always a threat, had intensified this cycle, exacerbating the blight's devastating impact. Their small, isolated community, once resilient, now faced an existential crisis. The crystalline tremors of hunger in her daughters became more frequent, their usually bright facets dulling with each passing day. Xylos spent sleepless nights, her inner light dimming, desperately searching for solutions, for a forgotten root, a resilient berry, anything that could stave off the inevitable. She experimented with ancient remedies, consulted the elders, but nothing worked. The blight was relentless, a silent predator stealing their future, one precious life at a time. This new, devastating threat was pushing Xylos to the absolute precipice, forcing her to confront a reality more terrifying than any dust storm or predatory night beast. She knew, with a mother's instinct, that she was running out of time, and that desperate times demanded desperate measures, perhaps even unthinkable ones. If you're captivated by stories of profound sacrifice and unwavering courage in the face of unimaginable odds, remember to subscribe to our channel. There are many more poignant tales from across the cosmos waiting to be discovered. The insidious blight, once a creeping shadow, now surged across Kaelin with terrifying speed, an unstoppable wave of decay. It devoured the last vestiges of the Luminivines, leaving behind only brittle, desiccated skeletons where vibrant, nutrient-rich flora once pulsed with life. Even the deep-rooted moss clusters, resilient survivors of countless droughts, succumbed to its necrotic grip, turning to a powdery ash. With the slightest touch, the air, already thin and dry, now carried the faint, sickly scent of decay, a constant reminder of the planet's failing health. Xylos watched, her own internal light flickering with each passing day, as her daughters' crystalline forms grew duller, their movements slower, their once bright chirps replaced by weak, forlorn whimpers. Hunger, a sensation she had always fought to keep from them, was now a constant, gnawing presence. Their small hands, usually reaching for playtime, now instinctively rubbed their empty crystalline bellies. Xylos exhausted every traditional remedy passed down through generations. She scoured ancient texts etched into cave walls, consulted the most revered matriarchs of her clan, and even dared to venture into the dangerous, unstable areas of the crystalline caverns thought to hold forgotten healing minerals. She brewed concoctions from rare, preserved herbs, ground down ancient, inert sapstones, and prayed to the ancestor crystals for guidance, for a miracle, for anything. Each attempt, each desperate hope, crumbled to dust just like the blight-stricken plants. The grim reality pressed in on her, a suffocating weight. Her daughters, her precious, innocent daughters, were starving. Their lives, so recently filled with the promise of Kaelin's fragile beauty, were now measured in dwindling hours, in the fading luminescence of their bodies. The thought was a shard of ice in her core, threatening to shatter her composed exterior. She gazed at their emaciated forms, their once vibrant facets now cloudy with exhaustion and hunger, and a primal scream echoed silently within her crystalline heart. It was during these desperate, sleepless nights, as the chill wind whispered through the cracks in their makeshift dwelling, that the faint, almost mythical whispers began to coalesce into something more concrete. The elders spoke of them in hushed tones, with a mixture of awe and trepidation, the Star Traders. Beings from beyond Kaelin's oppressive atmosphere, traversing the vast, stardusted ocean between worlds. More specifically, the tales spoke of humans, a species known for their insatiable curiosity, their astonishingly advanced technology, and their peculiar, sometimes unsettling, appreciation for exotic, organic materials. The rumors, often dismissed as folklore or fever dreams born of starvation, now took on a chilling new significance within Xylos's desperate mind. They were said to possess unimaginable wealth, capable of acquiring anything, and in their vast, interstellar markets, even life itself could be a commodity. Some whispered of humans' strange fascination with living tissue, with unique cellular structures, and with organs that held unusual properties. Kaelin's crystalline inhabitants were particularly unique, their internal organs, especially the heart, a complex matrix of solidified light and pure energy. The idea was horrifying, alien, anathema to everything her culture held sacred. Yet the image of her daughter's fading light, their small, hungry faces, burned brighter than any ingrained cultural taboo. The whispers of these traders, of humans, of their peculiar desires, became a faint, terrifying spark of possibility in the vast, encroaching darkness of Xylos's despair. It was a dark path, fraught with unknown dangers and unspeakable compromises, but for her daughters, Xylos knew she would walk through any shadow. She would confront any alien, endure any fear, if it meant even a fleeting chance at their survival. The whispers, once distant echoes in the void of her despair, solidified into a horrifying truth as Xylos delved deeper into the hushed conversations among the most desperate Kaelinites. She learned of the Heartstone Market, not a physical place on Kaelin, but a clandestine, interstellar nexus, a shadowy bazaar operating in the fringes of galactic law. It was a market where the rarest and most potent biological components from across countless worlds were exchanged for wealth beyond Kaelin's comprehension. It was illicit, yes, condemned by most civilized species, yet tolerated by enough powerful entities to flourish. And for the starving, for those with nothing left to lose, it represented the ultimate, forbidden gamble. The thought sent shivers through her crystalline form, a cold dread that penetrated even her deepest core. Her people viewed life as sacred, each facet of their being a gift from the ancestor crystals, not a commodity to be bartered. Yet, as she watched her daughters struggle to swallow the last, meager, nutrient-deficient paste, the grim realization dawned with brutal clarity. What else did she possess? What could she possibly offer that held any value in such a market? Kaelin offered nothing but dust and decay now. Her hands, calloused from endless foraging, her strength, nearly spent from ceaseless worry, her knowledge of the dying flora, none of these held currency beyond her blighted world. Then, the unthinkable, the truly horrific answer, crystallized in her mind, a cold, hard truth that threatened to shatter her very essence, her own crystalline heart. It was the most unique and potent organ in her species, the very nexus of her life force, her consciousness, her emotions, a shimmering core of pure, resonant energy. Within Kaelin's culture, the Heartstone was not just an organ, it was the seat of the soul, a direct link to the collective consciousness of their ancestors, a beacon of individual identity and familial heritage. The thought alone was a sacrilege, a violation of everything she was taught, everything she believed. To even contemplate its removal, its sale, was an act of ultimate desperation, a betrayal of her own being. But then she looked at her daughters again, their small bodies wasting away, their once vibrant colors fading, their soft, melodic chirps now barely audible whispers. The image of their suffering eclipsed every cultural taboo, every ingrained law of reverence for self. Their survival. That was the only law that mattered now. Their future, their breath, their laughter, these were the only sacred things left. Her people's history spoke of the Heartstone's profound significance. It was the center of their unique crystalline biology, pulsing with stored solar energy, governing not just physical functions but also their empathic abilities and deep-seated connection to the planet itself. Removing it wasn't just a medical procedure, it was an existential severing. A part of her would die, undoubtedly. She would be a lesser version of herself, a fragment where a whole once existed. The ancient tales warned of those who lost their hearts through accident or battle. They became shadows of their former selves, disconnected, mournful, forever yearning for what was lost. This would be a self-inflicted severing, a conscious choice to sacrifice her very essence. The weight of this decision pressed down on her, an invisible, crushing force. It was a choice born of agony, a monumental, terrifying act of maternal love so profound it transcended even the boundaries of her own being. For her daughters, she would willingly become a shadow. For her daughters, she would sell her heart. The immense, terrifying sacrifice would be hers, and hers alone. The Heartstone market beckoned, a dark promise in the desperate night. The immense, terrifying sacrifice would be hers, and hers alone. The Heartstone market beckoned, a dark promise in the desperate night. The decision made, chillingly firm in her core, Xylos began the agonizing preparations. She crafted a story for her daughters, weaving a tale of a long journey to distant, fertile lands where special, potent medicines grew, medicines that would banish the blight and bring Kaelin back to life. Her voice, usually so clear and resonant, wavered only slightly as she spoke of vast distances and the need for her to travel alone to acquire these remedies. She carefully packed what little she could, mostly nutrient paste for them that she had painstakingly rationed from her own meager share, and some warmth-giving wraps for the cold nights. Each item she lovingly placed felt like a small, sad farewell. The hardest part was looking into their expectant, hopeful eyes, knowing the true nature of her quest, the irreversible price she was about to pay. She held them close, savoring the feel of their small, delicate crystalline forms against hers, imprinting their light into her memory, an anchor for the darkness ahead. The farewell was a silent scream within her, tearing at her very being, yet outwardly, she maintained a fragile composure, a shield for their innocence. She promised to return, a promise laden with a different meaning than they understood. Her journey to the primary spaceport of Kaelin was a perilous trek across familiar yet now terrifying terrain. The once picturesque crystalline valleys were ravaged by the blight, leaving behind desolate expanses of gray dust and ghost-like husks of former flora. The wind, once a gentle caress, now carried a mournful howl, echoing the emptiness in her own chest. She traveled by night, guided by the faint glow of distant stars and the even fainter hope in her heart, avoiding the few remaining, desperate scavengers and the ever-present threat of Kaelin's nocturnal predators, made bolder by the widespread famine. Each step was an effort, not just against the physical demands of the journey, but against the crushing weight of her decision. The spaceport, a sprawling, incongruous blotch of alien technology on Kaelin's natural landscape, seemed to shimmer in the distance like a mirage, a beacon of both salvation and despair. It was a place she had always avoided, a symbol of the outside world that had seemed so irrelevant to their self-contained lives. Now, it was her only destination. As she drew closer, the cacophony of the spaceport assaulted her senses, the guttural roars of unknown engines, the flashing lights of docking bays, and the strange, metallic tang of interstellar fuels. It was a chaotic symphony of alien life, a stark contrast to Kaelin's quiet, dying beauty. This was her first true encounter with beings from beyond Kaelin, a jarring immersion into the vast, bustling galactic community. Among the myriad species bustling through the gleaming, sterile terminals, Xylos first observed them, humans. They moved with a peculiar confidence, a blend of casual authority and boundless energy. Their technology, even in the glimpses she caught, seemed incredibly advanced, their ships sleek and far beyond anything Kalen could ever produce. They conversed in a rapid, complex language, their faces expressive, their customs unfathomable. One particular group caught her eye. They were negotiating with a scaly, multi-limbed creature, their voices carrying an air of command, their gestures precise and efficient. She noticed their strange, soft skin, their varied hair colors, and the intricate devices they wore on their wrists and ears, constantly humming with unseen energy. There was an unsettling directness in their gazes, a keen, analytical quality that made her instinctively pull back into the shadows. Their sheer presence, their booming technology, and their alien customs were a stark reminder of the immense chasm separating her dying world from the vibrant, bustling galaxy. It struck her then, with a fresh wave of trepidation, that these were the beings she was about to negotiate with, the species rumored to have a peculiar interest in things like her heart. The sheer alienness of their existence, combined with the desperate purpose of her journey, left her feeling even more isolated, a lone crystalline mother adrift in a sea of unknowns, about to offer the most precious part of herself to a species she barely understood. The cold reality of the transaction she was about to undertake solidified, more terrifying in its tangible proximity than in its distant contemplation. The immense, terrifying sacrifice would be hers, and hers alone. The Heartstone market beckoned, a dark promise in the desperate night. The decision made, chillingly firm in her core, Xylos began the agonizing preparations. She crafted a story for her daughters, weaving a tale of a long journey to distant, fertile lands where special, potent medicines grew, medicines that would banish the blight and bring Kalen back to life. Her voice, usually so clear and resonant, wavered only slightly as she spoke of vast distances and the need for her to travel alone to acquire these remedies. She carefully packed what little she could, mostly nutrient paste for them that she had painstakingly rationed from her own meager share, and some warmth-giving wraps for the cold nights. Each item she lovingly placed felt like a small, sad farewell. The hardest part was looking into their expectant, hopeful eyes, knowing the true nature of her quest, the irreversible price she was about to pay. She held them close, savoring the feel of their small, delicate crystalline forms against hers, imprinting their light into her memory, an anchor for the darkness ahead. The farewell was a silent scream within her, tearing at her very being, yet outwardly, she maintained a fragile composure, a shield for their innocence. She promised to return, a promise laden with a different meaning than they understood. Her journey to the primary spaceport of Kalen was a perilous trek across familiar yet now terrifying terrain. The once picturesque crystalline valleys were ravaged by the blight, leaving behind desolate expanses of gray dust and ghost-like husks of former flora. The wind, once a gentle caress, now carried a mournful howl, echoing the emptiness in her own chest. She traveled by night, guided by the faint glow of distant stars and the even fainter hope in her heart, avoiding the few remaining, desperate scavengers and the ever-present threat of Kalen's nocturnal predators, made bolder by the widespread famine. Each step was an effort, not just against the physical demands of the journey, but against the crushing weight of her decision. The spaceport, a sprawling, incongruous blotch of alien technology on Kalen's natural landscape, seemed to shimmer in the distance like a mirage, a beacon of both salvation and despair. It was a place she had always avoided, a symbol of the outside world that had seemed so irrelevant to their self-contained lives. Now, it was her only destination. As she drew closer, the cacophony of the spaceport assaulted her senses, the guttural roars of unknown engines, the flashing lights of docking bays, and the strange, metallic tang of interstellar fuels. It was a chaotic symphony of alien life, a stark contrast to Kalen's quiet, dying beauty. This was her first true encounter with beings from beyond Kalen, a jarring immersion into the vast, bustling galactic community. Among the myriad species bustling through the gleaming, sterile terminals, Xylos first observed them, humans. They moved with a peculiar confidence, a blend of casual authority and boundless energy. Their technology, even in the glimpses she caught, seemed incredibly advanced, their ships sleek and far beyond anything Kalen could ever produce. They conversed in a rapid, complex language, their faces expressive, their customs unfathomable. One particular group caught her eye. They were negotiating with a scaly, multi-limbed creature, their voices carrying an air of command, their gestures precise and efficient. She noticed their strange, soft skin, their varied hair colors, and the intricate devices they wore on their wrists and ears, constantly humming with unseen energy. There was an unsettling directness in their gazes, a keen, analytical quality that made her instinctively pull back into the shadows. Their sheer presence, their booming technology, and their alien customs were a stark reminder of the immense chasm separating her dying world from the vibrant, bustling galaxy. It struck her then, with a fresh wave of trepidation, that these were the beings she was about to negotiate with, the species rumored to have a peculiar interest in things like her heart. The sheer alienness of their existence, combined with the desperate purpose of her journey, left her feeling even more isolated, a lone crystalline mother adrift in a sea of unknowns, about to offer the most precious part of herself to a species she barely understood. The cold reality of the transaction she was about to undertake solidified, more terrifying in its tangible proximity than in its distant contemplation. Her journey to the primary spaceport of Kalen was a perilous trek across familiar yet now terrifying terrain. The once picturesque crystalline valleys were ravaged by the blight, leaving behind desolate expanses of gray dust and ghost-like husks of former flora. The wind, once a gentle caress, now carried a mournful howl, echoing the emptiness in her own chest. She traveled by night, guided by the faint glow of distant stars and the even fainter hope in her heart, avoiding the few remaining, desperate scavengers and the ever-present threat of Kalen's nocturnal predators, made bolder by the widespread famine. Each step was an effort, not just against the physical demands of the journey, but against the crushing weight of her decision. The spaceport, a sprawling, incongruous blotch of alien technology on Kalen's natural landscape, seemed to shimmer in the distance like a mirage, a beacon of both salvation and despair. It was a place she had always avoided, a symbol of the outside world that had seemed so irrelevant to their self-contained lives. Now, it was her only destination. As she drew closer, the cacophony of the spaceport assaulted her senses, the guttural roars of unknown engines, the flashing lights of docking bays, and the strange, metallic tang of interstellar fuels. It was a chaotic symphony of alien life, a stark contrast to Kalen's quiet, dying beauty. This was her first true encounter with beings from beyond Kalen, a jarring immersion into the vast, bustling galactic community. Among the myriad species bustling through the gleaming, sterile terminals, Xylos first observed them, humans. They moved with a peculiar confidence, a blend of casual authority and boundless energy. Their technology, even in the glimpses she caught, seemed incredibly advanced, their ships sleek and far beyond anything Kalen could ever produce. They conversed in a rapid, complex language, their faces expressive, their customs unfathomable. One particular group caught her eye. They were negotiating with a scaly, multi-limbed creature, their voices carrying an air of command, their gestures precise and efficient. She noticed their strange, soft skin, their varied hair colors, and the intricate devices they wore on their wrists and ears, constantly humming with unseen energy. There was an unsettling directness in their gazes, a keen, analytical quality that made her instinctively pull back into the shadows. Their sheer presence, their booming technology, and their alien customs were a stark reminder of the immense chasm separating her dying world from the vibrant, bustling galaxy. It struck her then, with a fresh wave of trepidation, that these were the beings she was about to negotiate with, the species rumored to have a peculiar interest in things like her heart. The sheer alienness of their existence, combined with the desperate purpose of her journey, left her feeling even more isolated, a lone crystalline mother adrift in a sea of unknowns, about to offer the most precious part of herself to a species she barely understood. The cold reality of the transaction she was about to undertake solidified, more terrifying in its tangible proximity than in its distant contemplation. The hyperjump was a disorienting swirl of colors, a brief, violent tear through space that deposited Xylos into the sprawling, chaotic heart of the Starstone market. It wasn't a single space station, but a vast, interconnected network of derelict ships, asteroid fortresses, and shimmering energy fields, all crammed together in a dizzying ballet of commerce and illicit trade. Light pulsed from 1,000 different sources, painting the void with neon streaks, while the air, surprisingly breathable, hummed with the cacophony of countless species. Guttural growls blended with melodic chirps, metallic clangs with the soft scraping of alien limbs. Xylos felt utterly overwhelmed, a fragile shard of light in an ocean of noise and strange forms. Beings with iridescent scales, furry hides, or multiple eyes jostled past her, their intentions unknown, their gazes fleeting and often predatory. Finding a broker in this maelstrom felt like an impossible task. She moved with an innate caution, her crystalline senses absorbing the torrent of foreign stimuli, searching for a sign, a whisper, anything that hinted at the illicit trade she sought. After what felt like cycles, she found herself drawn to a dimly lit alcove, tucked away from the main thoroughfare. There, behind a flickering holographic screen, sat a being known only as Vex. Vex was a creature of indeterminate origin, all sinew and bone, with an unsettlingly smooth voice that cut through the market's din. His eyes, multiple and lidless, seemed to miss nothing. He specialized, she learned, in rare biological trades, his reputation built on discretion and efficient, if morally ambiguous, transactions. Xylos, her resolve hardening with each glance at the market successes, approached him. Her voice, though a whisper, held the weight of 1,000 desperate pleas as she stated her intent. Vex listened, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor running through his skeletal frame as she described the unique properties of a crystalline heart. He steepled his long, bony fingers, his multifaceted eyes flickering over her. A kaolinite heartstone, he mused, the words echoing in the claustrophobic space. A true rarity even here. Potent. Resonant. But demanding. Not every buyer understands such an intricate piece of life. He paused, his gaze sharpening. Such a prize, with its specific energetic signature, would appeal to a very particular clientele. Often, it is the humans who seek items of such profound, almost spiritual, biological significance. They have a fascination, a drive, to understand and utilize the most unique aspects of life across the cosmos. The human factor. The very beings she had observed at Kaelin's spaceport, now linked directly to her ultimate sacrifice. The cold reality of the transaction settled deep into her core. She was about to offer her very essence to a species whose motives she barely comprehended, for a price that would save her daughters. The human factor. The very beings she had observed at Kaelin's spaceport, now linked directly to her ultimate sacrifice. The cold reality of the transaction settled deep into her core. She was about to offer her very essence to a species whose motives she barely comprehended, for a price that would save her daughters. Meanwhile, light cycles away, Commander Eris Thorn navigated his own personal hell. He was a human xenobotanist and a decorated former military officer, his past a tapestry woven with both scientific discovery and grim combat. But none of his accolades or experiences had prepared him for the silent, creeping devastation that had taken root within his family. His younger sister, Alara, vibrant and full of life, was succumbing to a rare, genetically driven crystallization disease. It was a cruel irony, a slow, irreversible transformation where her soft tissues subtly hardened, losing their flexibility, turning brittle, much like the process Xylos' own world was undergoing, though a different manifestation. The finest medical minds in the human confederacy had been baffled, their advanced technologies proving useless against the relentless progression of the illness. Alara was fading, her laughter replaced by hacking coughs, her once expressive face slowly becoming a mask of pain. Eris's motivation for seeking out the darkest corners of the galactic marketplace was simple, raw, and utterly desperate: his sister's life. He had exhausted every legitimate avenue, every scientific theory, every conventional cure. His quest had led him down increasingly shadowed paths, rumors of unique biological specimens, of organs with unheard-of regenerative properties, of life-giving energies locked within exotic forms of alien anatomy. He had spent fortunes, risked his reputation, and endured the scorn of his peers, all in the hope of finding the one anomalous biological construct that might hold the key to reversing Alara's agonizing decline. The whispers of a Hearthstone market had reached him through his own network of contacts, a network far more extensive and ethically flexible than Xylos could ever imagine. He was a man driven by love and guilt, haunted by the image of his sister's slow, beautiful decay. Back in the sprawling depths of the Starstone market, with Vex acting as the conduit, Xylos made her offer. The broker's translation device, a small, shimmering orb hovering between them, rendered her crystalline language into the common galactic tongue, its tone flat and devoid of the raw emotion that shook Xylos's very being. The seller offers her primary core stone, Vex relayed, his voice a low, gravelly hum. A living, crystalline heart, unique to the kaelinite species. It possesses immense bioenergetic potential, capable of self-regeneration and energy storage far beyond standard biological norms. It is a focal point of consciousness and life force, radiating pure, concentrated stellar energy. The rarity is absolute. The potency unparalleled. He watched Xylos with his impassive, multifaceted gaze, noting the slight tremor in her translucent fingers, the subtle shift of her internal light. The offer was then communicated across the market's encrypted networks, reaching Eris Thorn in his sterile, research-laden vessel hovering in a distant, anonymous sector. He received the transmission, a brief data packet describing the unparalleled properties of a kaelinite heartstone. His usually stoic features tightened, his eyes, accustomed to processing complex scientific data, now burning with a renewed, desperate hope. A living, crystalline heart? Self-regeneration? Pure stellar energy? It sounded like something out of ancient myth, precisely the kind of radical, unheard-of biology he now believed was his sister's only chance. He had pursued lesser specimens, spent years on dead ends, but this felt different. This felt like the answer. The sheer audacity of the offer, the profound nature of the sacrifice, was not lost on Eris, even through the sterile language of the data transmission. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that he had found what he was looking for, a final, desperate gamble for Alara's life. He initiated a secure channel back to Vex, signaling his undeniable interest. The game was now set. The game was now set. The tense negotiation began, a silent battle of wills waged across the vast, impersonal distance of the Starstone market's communication network. Xylos, seated opposite Vex in the dimly lit alcove, watched the broker's multifaceted eyes track the data flowing across his console. Her own internal light, usually a steady, calming glow, flickered with an intensity born of profound fear and an even profounder maternal drive. Every pulse of her remaining core vibrated with the urgency of her daughter's survival. She listened, through Vex translations, to the human's precise, almost clinical inquiries about the heart's energetic output, its resonant frequency, its compatibility with various biological matrices. Eris Thorn's voice, filtered through the comms, was calm, measured, yet Xylos sensed an underlying current of intense purpose, a relentless drive that mirrored her own. Vex relayed Eris's initial offer, a figure that, even to Xylos's kaelinite understanding of galactic credits, was astronomical, far beyond anything she had ever imagined. It was enough to not only secure a lifetime of blight-resistant seeds and nutrient paste for her daughters but to potentially revitalize Kaelin itself. Yet Xylos felt no elation, only a tightening in her chest, a stark reminder of the ultimate cost. She knew her heart's true value, not in credits, but in the life it sustained, the love it held. She pushed for more, not out of greed, but out of an instinctive need to maximize the security of her children's future, to make the sacrifice undeniably worthwhile. There was a moment, as Vex paused for Eris's counteroffer, when a wave of profound grief washed over Xylos. The reality of what she was doing, what she was about to lose, threatened to overwhelm her carefully constructed composure. Her vision blurred, her internal light dimmed precariously, and a phantom ache echoed from the very core of her being. She saw her daughters' faces, their innocent smiles, their tiny crystalline hands reaching for her, and the image struck her with the force of a physical blow. The thought of never truly feeling their warmth again, of existing as a hollowed-out echo of her former self, was a torment almost unbearable. A single, shimmering tear, cold and crystalline, traced a path down her facet, a visible manifestation of the silent scream inside. But then, as quickly as it came, the weakness receded, fiercely suppressed by the iron will of a mother fighting for her young. Her daughters. Their survival was paramount. Her grief, her fear, her very essence, were secondary. They were the reason. They were the only reason. Eris, through Vex, agreed to her elevated terms, a testament to his own desperate need. The final sum flashed across Vex's console, a dizzying array of numbers that would grant Xylos's daughters not just survival, but prosperity. The agreement was finalized with a series of digital signatures and neural imprints, binding both parties to the transaction under complex galactic trade laws. Xylos felt the weight of it settle upon her, a grim finality. Eris's voice, then, cut through the quiet, a direct question to Vex. Confirm the seller's condition. Is she prepared for immediate extraction? Xylos stiffened, then nodded, her gaze firm. There was no going back now. The substantial sum of advance credits was transferred, instantly appearing as a secured deposit in her chosen Kaelanite account, a technological marvel she barely understood but trusted implicitly, knowing it represented her daughter's future. The deal was done. Her heart, vibrant and pulsing with life, was no longer hers. It belonged to the human, Eris Thorn, a man on his own desperate quest for survival, unwittingly entangled in hers. The ship's internal lights, a cold, clinical blue, cast long, sterile shadows across the temporary medical facility. Every surface gleamed with an unnerving perfection, an environment utterly alien to Xylos's natural, organic upbringing. The air, recycled and odorless, felt thin and lifeless compared to the dusty winds of Kaelan. This was a place of advanced science, devoid of warmth or empathy, a stark contrast to the profound emotional weight of the procedure about to take place. Xylos lay on a specialized biotable, her crystalline form meticulously prepped. Advanced medical instruments, delicate and precise, hovered around her, guided by unseen hands. She felt the subtle hum of energy fields, the soft pressure of restraints, all designed to ensure her stillness. A cool, numbing agent seeped into her core, a strange sensation that dulled the edges of her awareness, yet sharpened her internal focus on her daughters' faces. Their images, vibrant and full of life, were burned into her very being, a shield against the fear, a powerful reason to endure. The removal of a Kaelanite heartstone was an intricate process, a delicate dance between organic matter and solidified energy. Unlike biological organs that could be simply excised, her heartstone was deeply resonant with her entire crystalline structure, a life-giving nexus. The procedure involved a phased energy field, carefully calibrated to disengage the heartstone's energetic bonds without causing irreversible damage to Xylos's remaining form. It was a process unique to her species, requiring specialized knowledge that only a handful of galactic xenobiologists possessed, and Eris Thorn, driven by desperation, had ensured the best were present. She felt a profound, almost spiritual tug as the energy fields intensified, a sensation akin to a soul being gently, yet forcefully extracted from its vessel. A deep, hollow ache bloomed in her chest, not physical pain, but an existential void, a sudden, terrifying emptiness where the vibrant core of her being once pulsed. Then it was done. A faint, internal sigh escaped her, a soundless release of breath. The brilliant, shimmering heartstone, her own life force, was carefully lifted from her chest cavity by a robotic manipulator and placed into a specialized containment unit, its glow still radiant, still potent. It was real. It was gone. In its place, the medical team worked with swift, practiced efficiency. A temporary, synthetic heart, crafted from advanced biopolymers and trace elements designed to mimic Kaelanite biology, was implanted. It hummed with a muted artificial energy, a pale imitation of the vibrant essence it replaced. This ersatz core would sustain her life, circulate the necessary energies, and maintain her basic biological functions, but it could not replicate her essence, her deepest connections, her unique resonance. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to her core, that a fundamental part of Xylos, the Xylos she once was, had ceased to exist. She was now an echo, a fragment, a life. Sustained but not truly lived. Weakened but resolute, Xylos was carefully moved from the biotable. The strength in her limbs felt diminished, her internal light noticeably dimmer. The silence that now resided within her chest was a constant, stark reminder of her sacrifice. She was numb, both from the agents and the overwhelming finality of her decision. Eris Thorn, who had observed the entire procedure from behind a transparent partition, now approached. His face, usually a mask of stoic determination, held a flicker of something new, something indefinable. He looked at the containment unit holding her heartstone, then back at Xylos, his gaze lingering on the now empty space in her chest where a synthetic thrummed. His initial focus had been purely scientific, an objective assessment of an extraordinary biological specimen. But witnessing the silent, profound act of sacrifice, seeing the raw, unwavering resolve in Xylos's eyes even as her very essence was removed, stirred something within him. It was a flicker of understanding, a nascent spark of respect that went beyond his scientific curiosity, touching upon the deeper, more complex currents of empathy and shared experience. He recognized the determination mirroring his own, a primal drive to protect, to save, no matter the cost. His pursuit of a cure for Alara had been a desperate scientific quest. Xylos's act was pure, unadulterated maternal love, and in that moment, he saw it, truly saw it, for the first time. With the procedure complete and a hollow ache replacing her vibrant core, Xylos, though physically weakened, felt a new, steely resolve solidify within her. The temporary, synthetic heart thrummed faintly in her chest, a constant, dull reminder of her immense sacrifice, yet it was the weight of the advanced nutrient paste and the blight-resistant seeds secured firmly in her cargo hold that truly fueled her. These were not just provisions, they were promises, tangible proof of her daughter's future. The long and painful journey back home to Kaelin began, each light year of distance between her and the bustling Starstone market bringing a strange mix of relief and profound melancholy. The sophisticated space vessel provided by Eris Thorn, a silent, efficient marvel of human engineering, cut through the void, carrying her swiftly away from the cold, sterile environment where she had traded her essence. She spent the journey in a state of quiet contemplation, her gaze lost in the starfield, rehearsing the story she would tell, carefully editing out the unspeakable truth. As the familiar, red-tinged atmosphere of Kaelin came into view through the viewport, a flicker of genuine warmth, something akin to joy, pierced through the numbness. She was home. Landing the advanced shuttle in a secluded valley, far from their usual dwelling, Xylos disembarked, her movements still stiff, her energy reserves depleted. The air, though still dry, tasted like redemption. Her daughters, hearing the unfamiliar thrum of the ship, emerged from their small dwelling, their crystalline forms still dull, their movements slow with hunger. The moment they saw her, a collective gasp escaped them, followed by an outpouring of unadulterated joy. Their small, fragile bodies launched themselves at her, their high-pitched chirps of, "Mother! You're back!" a melody that momentarily drowned out the persistent ache in her chest. Their relief was immediate, palpable. Xylos, forcing a smile onto her translucent facets, presented the nutrient paste, rich and vibrant, unlike the diluted sustenance they had grown accustomed to. The blight-resistant seeds, carefully packaged, promised a future free from the gnawing fear of starvation. She watched, a lump forming in her throat, as her daughters devoured the paste, their crystalline forms seemingly absorbing the energy almost instantly, their dull facets beginning to reignite with a faint, internal glow. Their laughter, once a rare, precious sound, now filled the air, echoing through the desolate valley. They spoke with wide-eyed wonder of the special medicine their mother had brought, completely oblivious to the true cost. Xylos nurtured them back to health with unwavering devotion, planting the seeds in newly tilled soil, carefully nurturing the nascent sprouts, watching life slowly return to their small corner of Kaelin. Yet, despite the palpable relief and the resurgence of life around her, Xylos carried a silent, heavy burden. The truth of her sacrifice remained hidden, a secret locked deep within her hollowed-out core. The synthetic heart, though functional, was a constant, dull ache, a phantom limb of her soul. It was a reminder of what she had given, a permanent mark of her profound, heartbreaking decision. She would sit by the glowing fields of newly sprouted sustenance, watching her daughters play, their laughter ringing freely, and feel a deep, resonant emptiness where her unique, vibrant heart once pulsed. The scar on her chest, though completely healed from a physiological perspective, was an invisible wound, a chasm in her very being. She had saved them, yes, but at what personal cost? The vibrancy of her own essence was gone, replaced by a quiet, enduring shadow. Every beat of the artificial heart was a testament to her unending love, but also a mournful echo of the Xylos she once was. She had traded her future for theirs, her wholeness for their survival, and that truth was a constant, silent companion, a burden she would carry in secret, for as long as her synthetic heart continued its artificial thrum. Years unfurled across Kaelin like newly blooming petals, turning the once barren landscape into a tapestry of vibrant green and luminous blue. The blight-resistant flora, meticulously nurtured by Xylos, had taken root, thriving in the enriched soil. Kaelin, once teetering on the brink of ecological collapse, slowly, miraculously, began its revival. The new crops provided not just sustenance, but abundance, ushering in an era of unexpected prosperity and renewed hope. The harsh winds still swept across the plains, but now they carried the sweet scent of blooming luminivines and the robust aroma of kaelinite nutrient-rich moss clusters. The scarcity that had defined their existence became a fading memory, replaced by a secure future that Xylos had so painstakingly bought with her essence. Her daughters, once frail and dim, now embodied the vibrant health and vigor of a planet reborn. They grew into healthy, radiant young adults, their crystalline forms gleaming with an inner light, their laughter a constant, joyous melody that warmed Xylos' synthetic core. They explored the burgeoning ecosystems, their curiosity boundless, their movements graceful and strong. They learned the ancient ways, but also embraced the new, understanding the importance of stewardship and resilience. They honored their mother's journey, believing her tale of distant lands and potent medicines, attributing Kaelin's revival entirely to her heroic quest. They often spoke of her bravery, her unwavering determination, and her singular love that had saved them all. Yet, despite their happiness, a subtle, lingering mystery occasionally stirred within them. They would notice their mother's distant gaze, a quiet introspection that sometimes fell upon her when she thought no one was watching. Her light, though warm and steady, lacked the vibrant, shifting hues they remembered from their earliest recollections, a subtle difference they couldn't articulate but instinctively perceived. And then there was the scar, a faint, almost imperceptible line nestled between the facets of her chest where her heartstone should have pulsed. Xylos always brushed off their innocent questions with gentle assurances, speaking of an old injury from her perilous travels. The daughters, secure in their mother's love and the planet's renewed vitality, eventually let the small mysteries fade into the background, content in their flourishing lives. Meanwhile, light years away, Commander Eris Thorn witnessed his own triumph. His sister, Elara, underwent a miraculous recovery, a slow but steady reversal of her agonizing crystallization disease. The properties extracted from Xylos' extraordinary heartstone proved to be the key, a unique bioenergetic signature that stimulated cellular regeneration and halted the rogue crystallization process within Elara's body. Eris, working tirelessly with a team of elite xenobotanists and medical specialists, had managed to isolate and synthesize the essential compounds, creating a bespoke treatment that not only stopped the disease but slowly began to restore Elara's tissues to their natural flexibility. The transformation was profound. Elara, once wasting away, now stood vibrant and whole, her eyes sparkling with renewed life, her movements fluid and free from pain. The success was a scientific marvel, hailed by the human confederacy as a breakthrough of unparalleled significance. Eris, though publicly lauded, found little personal satisfaction in the accolades. His focus remained squarely on Elara, on her newfound health, and on the immense debt he felt he owed. The initial guilt he had felt at acquiring such a profound, life-giving organ from a sentient being had been overshadowed by the urgency of Alara's condition. But with her recovery secured, the ethical implications, like a slow-burning ember, began to glow hotter within him. He often thought of Xylos, of her silent sacrifice in that sterile medical bay, of the raw, unwavering maternal love he had glimpsed in her eyes. He had saved his sister, but he knew, with a certainty that reached into his very core, that his triumph had come at an immeasurable cost to another. The memory of Xylos, a lone crystalline mother offering her most precious self for her children, was a constant, haunting presence in his thoughts, a seed of an idea beginning to germinate in the fertile ground of his conscience. Eris, having witnessed Xylos' silent, profound sacrifice, now grappled with the complex, thorny ethical implications of his actions. The joy and relief of Alara's miraculous recovery were immense, a burden lifted from his soul, yet an unexpected counterweight had settled in its place, a growing sense of responsibility, tinged with a persistent, gnawing guilt. He had used Xylos' heart, her very essence, to save his sister. The scientific triumph, the medical breakthrough, felt hollow without acknowledging the profound personal cost to another sentient being. He would often find himself staring blankly at the intricate holographic projections of the kaolinite heartstone, its vibrant, crystalline structure now fully understood by human science, and think not of its properties, but of the empty space it had left behind in Xylos. The memory of her quiet dignity during the procedure, her eyes filled with an all-consuming love for her daughters, haunted his thoughts. He had gone into the transaction as a scientist, a desperate brother, but he had emerged forever changed, a man burdened by an interspecies debt he hadn't anticipated. Driven by this burgeoning sense of guilt and an insatiable scientific curiosity now intertwined with a deeper, more personal empathy, Eris began a relentless, exhaustive research into Xylos' species. He delved into ancient galactic archives, consulted xenolinguists to translate kaolinite cultural texts, and even sought out fringe historians who specialized in the unique crystalline species of the Orion spur. He learned of their deep connection to their homeworld, of their unique biology where the heartstone was not merely an organ, but the very seat of their consciousness, their spiritual essence, their ancestral memories. He discovered the profound spiritual significance of their hearts, how it connected them to the collective kaolinite psyche, how it resonated with the very energy of their planet. The act of giving up one's heart, he realized, was not just a physical donation, it was a tearing away of one's soul, an act of self-annihilation for the sake of another. The cultural taboo surrounding such a transaction was immense, and Xylos' willingness to defy it spoke volumes about her love. He felt a chilling understanding of the magnitude of her sacrifice, far beyond the scientific data he had initially processed. He had taken not just an organ, but a part of a living being's very soul. The more he learned, the heavier the weight in his chest became. He understood that while Alara lived, Xylos existed as a hollowed-out echo of her former self, a life sustained but spiritually diminished. The advanced synthetic heart he had provided was a marvel of engineering, but it was a cold, inert replacement for the vibrant, conscious core she had surrendered. The imbalance of it all, the profound transactional debt, festered in his mind. He owed her more than credits, he owed her, if not her original self, then at least a measure of peace, a semblance of the wholeness he had, in a sense, taken. A risky, seemingly impossible idea began to form in Eris's mind, slowly at first, like the crystallization process he had so meticulously studied. It was an audacious plan, one that defied current medical understanding and pushed the boundaries of xenobotanical ethics. It was driven not by scientific ambition alone, but by a deep-seated desire for redemption, a longing to rectify the profound imbalance he had created. He had seen the raw, unbreakable spirit of Xylos, a mother's love that transcended species and economics. He had taken a piece of that spirit, used it to heal his own. Now, he felt an imperative to return something, to somehow mend what he had broken, even if partially. The plan would require immense resources, unfathomable secrecy, and a leap of faith into the unknown. He knew it would be ridiculed by his peers, deemed impossible by medical science. But Eris Thorn, the man who had faced the crushing despair of his sister's illness and emerged victorious, was not one to be deterred by impossibility. He had saved one life. Now, he would try to restore another, not with cold science, but with a profound sense of justice and a glimmer of hope that even a broken soul could find a path to wholeness. Eris Thorn, the man who had faced the crushing despair of his sister's illness and emerged victorious, was not one to be deterred by impossibility. He had saved one life. Now, he would try to restore another, not with cold science, but with a profound sense of justice and a glimmer of hope that even a broken soul could find a path to wholeness. Driven by this new, powerful conviction, Eris initiated a monumental undertaking, an ecological aid program specifically designed for Kalen. It wasn't a philanthropic whim, but a meticulously planned, long-term endeavor disguised as humanitarian assistance. He leveraged his military connections, subtly redirecting decommissioned cargo vessels and surplus agricultural technology, ensuring the flow of resources remained untraceable back to his personal fortune or his previous transaction. He established a network of human xenobotanists and ecological engineers, framing the project as a critical study of extreme planetary regeneration and a testbed for advanced terraforming techniques. The official narrative was one of human benevolence, extending aid to a recovering world. The underlying truth was Eris's calculated play for redemption. He funded advanced agricultural drones, built state-of-the-art water purification systems, and introduced a continuous supply of highly specialized fertilizers, all engineered to bolster Kalen's unique ecosystem, ensuring its resilience against future blights. This wasn't charity. It was an investment in a future where Xylos' sacrifice would never again be necessary. His return to Kalen was orchestrated with the precision of a military operation, ensuring his true identity and the source of the sustained aid remained concealed beneath layers of bureaucracy and philanthropic fronts. He piloted a discreet survey vessel, its transponders broadcasting generic research protocols, masking his personal agenda. He spent months performing flybys, analyzing Kalen's revitalized ecosystems, studying the new, vibrant patterns of life from orbit. His goal was not direct contact, not yet. He needed to observe, to confirm, to ensure that the Kalen he returned to was one where the shadow of starvation had been permanently banished. He meticulously reviewed satellite data showing sprawling, lush farmlands, shimmering with the new, enhanced luminivines. Water reservoirs, once dangerously low, now reflected the sun with abundant, crystal-clear blue. This was the Kalen he had envisioned, the one Xylos' heart had bought. From afar, through powerful telescopic arrays, he observed Xylos and her daughters. They were no longer the frail, struggling figures etched in his memory. Her daughters, now grown and vibrant, moved with an unburdened grace, their crystalline forms radiating pure, unadulterated joy as they tended to the flourishing fields. He saw Xylos too, her movements slower, perhaps, her internal light calmer, but undeniably present, guiding her children, a revered matriarch in a thriving community. The stark contrast between their past desperation and their current abundance was a powerful confirmation of his initial transaction's positive impact. He had saved them. He had fulfilled his end of the bargain, and more. This sustained flourishing, this vibrant, self-sufficient Kalen, was the direct result of the resources his payment had afforded. The knowledge brought a complex mix of satisfaction and renewed determination. The ecological aid program would continue, ensuring Kalen's stability for generations. But his personal mission, his quest for redemption, was far from over. He had ensured their physical survival, yes, but he still needed to address the spiritual void he had created within Xylos. The next phase of his audacious plan was ready to unfold. He would approach her, not as the buyer, but as something else entirely. The next phase of his audacious plan was ready to unfold. He would approach her, not as the buyer, but as something else entirely. Years had passed since Eris Thorn orchestrated the Kalenite ecological aid, years during which his guilt festered and transformed into a resolute purpose. He had allowed time for the planet to fully recover, for the memory of the blight to recede into history, and for its inhabitants to grow accustomed to the quiet beneficence of the Humanitarian Aid Initiative, a front he meticulously maintained. Now, with Kalen's prosperity firmly established, he finally initiated the first direct contact, a move he had rehearsed countless times in his mind, perfecting every detail. He presented himself as Eris Thorn, a respected xenobotanist from the Human Confederacy, deeply interested in Kalen's unique and miraculously recovered ecosystem. His official vessel, a sleek, unmarked research craft, touched down gently on a pre-approved landing pad near one of the thriving agricultural hubs where Xylos now often advised the younger generations. Xylos, her crystalline form radiating a serene wisdom, met him at the edge of the fields. Her internal light, though calmer, contained a subtle, unidentifiable familiarity in Eris's presence, sparking a quiet unease deep within her synthetic core. His movements, though outwardly respectful and scholarly, held a distinct efficiency she recognized from the brief, terrifying glimpses of humans at the spaceport so long ago. There was something in his eyes, too, a depth of observation that felt unnervingly personal, as if he saw beyond her placid exterior. She had grown accustomed to the gratitude of her people, to the easy comfort of a life rebuilt out of sacrifice, but this human's gaze was different. It carried an unspoken intensity, a knowing that transcended mere scientific curiosity. She found herself subconsciously shielding the faint scar on her chest, a reflex born of years of concealment. Despite the peace of her life, despite the flourishing world around her, she felt a subtle tension, a premonition of something significant about to unfold. Eris spent weeks on Kalen, his research a genuine and thorough exploration of the planet's regeneration. He studied the unique properties of the blight-resistant flora, consulted with Kalenite agricultural experts, and even participated in planting ceremonies, all while subtly observing Xylos. He watched her interact with her daughters, who were now strong, self-assured young adults, fully engaged in the life of their vibrant world. He saw the love in her calm gaze, but also the lingering, almost imperceptible shadow in her light, the quiet resignation he had predicted. He carefully built trust, sharing cutting-edge xenobotanical knowledge, offering insights into sustainable agriculture from other worlds. He demonstrated a profound respect for Kalenite culture and traditions, never once hinting at his true purpose or his past involvement. Xylos, recognizing his genuine scientific prowess and his deference, slowly began to lower her guard, though the faint unease never fully dissipated. The moment finally arrived. Eris sought out Xylos in the tranquil evening glow of Kalen's twin moons, finding her meditating by a field of luminivines, their blue light painting shifting patterns across her crystalline facets. He approached cautiously, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. "Xylos," he began, his human name sounding alien in the quiet. "I have not been entirely forthcoming about my true reasons for coming to Kalen." Her internal light flared momentarily, a crystalline pulse of startled awareness. She turned to face him, her gaze steady, prepared for almost anything, yet utterly unprepared for what was to come. He reached into a specially shielded container he had kept close, producing a shimmering, multifaceted object. It pulsed with a familiar, yet distant, energy, a contained, potent essence. "I am Commander Eris Thorn," he stated, his voice now clear and resonant, devoid of its earlier scholarly pretense. "And this is a carefully preserved, regenerative essence of your original heart." The glowing object hummed in his hand, a beacon of impossible hope and terrifying truth. The glowing object hummed in his hand, a beacon of impossible hope and terrifying truth. Xylos stared at the shimmering essence, her crystalline form frozen in disbelief. The world seemed to tilt, the gentle hum of the luminivines fading into a deafening roar within her mind. Her internal light, which had been a calm, steady glow for so long, flared violently, flickering with an overwhelming torrent of memories. The acrid smell of the spaceport, the cold, sterile air of the medical bay, the profound, gut-wrenching ache of separation, all flooded back with an agonizing clarity. Her sacrifice, buried deep beneath layers of maternal resolve and Kalen's flourishing future, surged forth, raw and visceral. Confusion warred with a fragile, almost unbearable hope. How was this possible? What impossible magic was this human wielding? The sight of that essence, undeniably hers, struck her with a force that threatened to shatter her carefully constructed composure. She felt the hollow thrum of her synthetic heart intensify, almost in protest, as the powerful resonance of her original essence called to her from Eris's outstretched hand. Eris, acutely aware of the shock rippling through Xylos, lowered the essence slightly, giving her space, allowing the truth to settle. His voice, now gentle but firm, filled the quiet evening. "Xylos, I understand this is overwhelming. But please hear me out," he explained, his words carefully chosen, how the unique energetic signature of her heartstone had been instrumental in curing his sister, Elara. He detailed the revolutionary medical breakthroughs that followed, the extensive research into the kaolinite crystalline biology, and the unprecedented understanding gained. "Elara's cure," he continued, his gaze unwavering, "allowed us to meticulously study the regenerative properties locked within your essence. We discovered a way to cultivate a living, potent extract, a concentrated form of your heart's unique energy. It's not the whole, original heart, Xylos, that is impossible to fully reconstitute. But it is a pure, highly concentrated essence capable of restoring a significant portion of your lost vitality, your unique resonance, your connection to the deepest parts of your being." He spoke of the ethical imperative that had driven him, the need to rectify the profound imbalance, to return what he could not outright give back. It was an offering of respect, of atonement for the unintended consequence of his desperate act. As Eris spoke, a gentle rustling signaled the arrival of Xylos's daughters. They had sensed a shift in their mother's internal light, the sudden, powerful emotional upheaval, and had rushed to her side. Their bright, curious eyes fell upon the shimmering essence in Eris's hand, then to their mother's trembling form. They looked from Eris's earnest face to Xylos's stunned expression, their young minds piecing together fragments of whispers, of ancient legends, and the sudden, undeniable gravity of the moment. They saw the scar on their mother's chest with new eyes, understanding now that it was not merely an old injury, but a mark of a profound, unimaginable sacrifice. One daughter, the stronger of the twins, reached out a tentative hand to Xylos, her crystalline touch a grounding force. The other placed a comforting hand on her mother's back, her internal light radiating a soft, unwavering support. They stood there, a silent, powerful testament to the love that had driven Xylos's impossible choice, their presence a silent offering of unwavering support, ready to face whatever impossible truth was about to unfold. The impossible beacon of her essence shimmered between human and kaolinite, a bridge built on sacrifice, desperation, and now, a fragile, burgeoning hope. The impossible beacon of her essence shimmered between human and kaolinite, a bridge built on sacrifice, desperation, and now, a fragile, burgeoning hope. Eris, with a solemn gesture, presented the contained essence to Xylos. Her daughters, sensing the gravity, guided her hand to accept the pulsating light. The moment her crystalline fingers brushed the container, a powerful, resonant hum vibrated through her entire being, awakening dormant pathways, stirring memories and connections long thought severed. It was like a forgotten melody, suddenly remembered, a color seen for the first time in an eternity. This was not a mere physical object, it was a fragment of her soul, meticulously preserved. Under Eris's careful orchestration, a specialized procedure was prepared. It wasn't surgical, but rather an energetic reintegration, a delicate process designed to merge the potent essence with Xylos's synthetic core, coaxing her fragmented spirit back to a semblance of wholeness. The procedure took place in a secluded chamber, bathed in the soft glow of Kaelin's natural energy fields, enhanced by Eris's refined technology. Her daughters remained close, their internal lights intermingling with hers, offering a silent, powerful anchor as she underwent the transformation. As the essence slowly integrated, Xylos felt an indescribable shift, a profound filling of the void within her. The dull thrum of the synthetic heart was gradually subsumed by a vibrant, familiar pulsation, faint at first, then growing stronger, richer, imbued with the distinctive frequency of her true self. Layers of numbness peeled away, revealing a renewed connection to her species' collective consciousness, to the deep, resonant song of Kaelin itself. Her internal light, once dimmed, now radiated with a subtle, yet undeniable, increase in intensity, its hues richer, more complex. It was not a full return to her original heart, Eris had been clear on that impossibility, but it was a restoration of her vibrant spirit, a reclamation of her true essence. With the procedure complete, Xylos emerged, her stride more confident, her gaze clearer. The phantom ache in her chest, a constant companion for years, had receded, replaced by a profound sense of inner peace. The subtle shift was visible to everyone. Kaelin, already thriving due to Eris's aid, seemed to resonate more deeply with her presence, its energies flowing through her with an ease she hadn't experienced in an age. She found renewed joy in the simplest things, the warmth of Kaelin's twin suns on her facets, the vibrant scent of the lumina vines, the harmonious chirps of her daughters, whose own lights seemed to brighten in response to her restored vitality. A deep, unexpected bond formed between Xylos and Eris. It was a connection forged not just in sacrifice, but in shared understanding and a mutual, profound respect. Eris, seeing the restored light in Xylos's eyes, finally found the true redemption he had sought. His guilt lifted, replaced by a quiet satisfaction, a testament to interspecies understanding and the profound, transformative power of both sacrifice and restitution. His initial pursuit had been driven by human desperation, his final act by a deep, evolved empathy. Xylos's daughters, having witnessed the impossible, now fully grasped the immeasurable depth of their mother's love. The whispered legends of her perilous journey now held a new, searing truth, interwoven with the shimmering essence that now resided within her. They understood that their mother had literally given her heart for them, and that in an act of profound, unexpected grace, a human had returned it, allowing her spirit to sing once more. This was not just a story of survival. It was a saga of love, sacrifice, and the enduring possibility of connection across the stars. Kaelin continued to flourish, a beacon of hope, its future secured, its heart song now complete, echoing the renewed spirit of its devoted mother. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through sacrifice and redemption. If you were moved by Xylos's unwavering love and Eris's profound quest, please subscribe to our channel for more compelling stories that explore the boundaries of humanity and alien kind. We have more epic sagas waiting to unfold, tales that will challenge your perceptions and stir your soul.